There it is. Well, good afternoon, and welcome to this week's edition of Drive Facebook Live. I'm your host, Bob Spitz, with my partner, Tony Whistler. And our guests today, I usually say special guests, but these guys are just guests. They're
They're not
family.
special.
Ah,
They're not special.
This is
I'm
John.
leaving.
Thanks, Bob.
All right.
Thanks, Bob.
Our special guests today are John Dowda and Karla, two of our star consultants or coaches. Welcome, guys. Nice to have you on the show with us.
Good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Karla, we've known each other going on 30 years now. Did you realize that?
30 years? I don't know that long, but yeah, long
Yeah,
time.
a long time.
You're talking out of turn, Bob.
Did
That
you
can't be possible. That
substitute?
means you were like 10
You
years
were
old when I met you, right?
exactly.
You beat me
Five,
to it.
like
Five.
five, yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. And we've seen our share of wild things happening in the company and working with shop owners over the years. And we're coming to the end of Leadership Month, isn't that right, Tony? This was
Yes,
Leadership
we
Month.
are. Yes, this is Leadership Month, and we're on the 28th, so we're pretty darn close
Pretty darn
to the end
close
of
to
this month.
getting to the end of it. So we want to continue with the theme of leadership. And one of the things I want to talk about is, we've met an awful lot of shop owners and people who are young and they just opened up a shop and they hired their first employee and they didn't actually realize at that point they were a leader, or even the fact that by owning a business, they are a leader, right? And it becomes kind of a shift, especially if they've been a technician all their lives and now they're thrown into this role of shop ownership and being a leader. And until a shop gets organized and starts getting procedures in place, systems in place, and documenting these systems and procedures and their policies in place, some shop owners, I'm not going to say all of them, some shop owners fall into
You know who you are.
what I call emotional leadership. And emotional leadership is making decisions based on emotion rather than an analysis of a situation, figuring out what happened, documenting it, and coming up with policy. So if it's a good thing, it'll continue being good. If it's a bad thing, it'll get corrected so that there isn't all that emotion going on or all that upset going on in the day-to-day turmoil of running a shop. Karla and John, have you seen that phenomena in shops?
Oh yes, definitely. And I think that's a hard thing for, especially if somebody buys the business, because they go from being friends with the technicians and working with them at the same level, and now they're giving them orders and they don't know how to deal with it. It's like they're their friends, and then sometimes the other technicians become kind of emotional about the situation, or because they were there, they expect special treatment, or they just get emotional about things because they're not paying the same attention or they're not hanging out with them and stuff like that. So that's another layer that can be difficult to navigate.
Right, right. And the frustration that some shop owners run into because, usually the person who started the shop, he was the go-getter in the shop that he worked in. He had more drive, he had more ambition, he had goals, and he's at a certain level of dynamic. There's a certain dynamic to that person. And then things happen in a shop that are so obvious to him of what you should do. And he gets so disappointed, or she gets so disappointed that the people they've hired, they don't see it and they don't get it. And if I had a dime for every time a shop owner said to me, well, I've told him this 100 times. I don't know why he doesn't get it.
What's the key word there, Bob?
A
Told.
hundred times.
Well, yes, that too.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, but it's the told, right? That's the
Right.
thing that makes it so challenging.
I could
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I can add something that I heard General Colin Powell say one time that reminds me a lot of this conversation about the playbook and about having things in writing. And that is, great leaders are almost always great simplifiers. They can cut through argument, debate, and doubt to offer a solution everybody can understand. And to me,
Absolutely.
like the heart of the playbook is having in writing simple answers that everybody can understand. Which I learned a lot from Karla along the way, and heard Karla saying to clients, no, 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 you've got eight ideas in one plan. You got to go back and put one idea in there, and we got to get that one idea right, and then have another idea, and then have another idea. And I think that's got a lot to do with where you guys are coming from on having it focused in writing, so that it's a very clear understanding and a easy thing to follow.
Right. And then again, when it goes back to the emotional concept, if an owner is being very emotional, obviously there must be a lot of stress involved. And obviously there's like having to tell somebody 25 times or whatever the issues can be. But one of the things that I noticed when I was working with clients as well, that when you're building policy, what you're essentially doing is you're just creating agreement. Like then it's not even difficult. Like you just go, like if there's even a slight chance that there's going to be some disagreement, both people in the correct culture will simply say, well, what does policy say? And we go, let's go look. And we just go look at the playbook and go, oh, okay, well, we can both, and then we both read it and go, okay, we can agree on that. And then what happens is you build that team. And I think that when it comes to how leadership works, leaders don't have to be as so hands-on when the team knows what they're supposed to do, right? That makes sense?
Well, that's part of it. You know, when you have a good set of policies, then they sort of manage each other because they're expecting it from each other. If everybody knows the policy, they're expecting it from each other rather than run to daddy, quote unquote,
That syndrome.
to ask for, you know, what should they do and what shouldn't they do, and you know, they themselves can go, hey, that's not how you're supposed to do that, you know,
Yeah.
What?
or let it go because so maybe that's how it's supposed to go. I remember starting at companies and reading the handbook manual, right? And it's like, well, it says here, blah, blah, blah. And then you start working and it's like everybody's doing it some other way. And you're like, I guess here that doesn't count, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's true, right? It's like,
Oh,
you know, it says something in the handbook and then everybody else does something else and you're like, well, I guess that, you know, that's how it's done here. You know, you never
yeah.
even think of like, oh, maybe nobody's following the way it's supposed to be, right?
Well,
But that's part of leadership, to be able to write this policies so that people can follow them, which I think that's what John was getting to. Like, you have um to have the vision, and that's part of being a leader, having that vision on and envision how things are going to run and what you're going to run into, and write those, you know, those procedures and those policies so that people can join in that vision
right.
and be
Oh,
part of
absolutely.
it.
I was,
You
And the
touch.
thing, I'm sorry, but I was going to say the thing that you were going to like the idea that they don't follow the policy, like you say, hey, I just came here, I just read the manual, I noticed that there's this policy and you're not following it. And the guy goes, yeah, I haven't read that thing since I started here 10 years ago.
Oh,
yeah.
is there such a thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I read it back in
Well,
92 when I came here. I think I read that thing. So then it becomes a situation where it's not even a breathing, living thing. And that again goes back to leadership and how they set up the culture, right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
think part of what's in there is something I vaguely remember from civics class many years ago, more than I care to mention. the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And if we've got good leadership, part of what comes from good leadership is the spirit of the law. And it's not just, it's, we get the concept. We do have a document to look at, but we understand the purpose of the document. And one thing I love about the Drive playbook is that every play, every policy has a reason and an expected result. And that is absolutely imperative to have it well done, because you're explaining, I'm not just doing this because I want to make a bunch of rules. I'm doing this because we expect this to happen when we do it.
Right. But backing up to something Karla said that was so vitally important is, one, a leader has to have a vision. One of the things we used to do at the seminar in the old days is I'd have everybody close their eyes and say, imagine if everything was exactly the way you wanted it to be in your shop. What does that look like? And be able to paint that picture. What is that vision? And now, did you communicate that vision? And not just once, but have you gone over it in your meetings? Do you even have meetings where everybody gets together and they realize you are the leader? You're leading them towards this known vision. And that lack of communication is just a killer for anybody who's trying to run a business. They've got to have the willingness and the ability to communicate, and as you pointed out, John, clearly and simply what it is we're trying to do. Because you're right, purpose is senior to policy. And a great example of that is something that Mike Lee and I used to talk about in one of his transmission shops. They had a policy that a warranty on the transmission was 12 months. But they also had a purpose to satisfy customers. And a customer had their transmission rebuild, and it was 12 months, 12,000 miles. And they parked it was an RV, and they parked it, and they didn't use it for over a year. And then when they took it out of storage, the transmission was leaking. Well, it was past the 12 months, but there was like 0 miles on this unit.
Right.
So do I stick to policy? Sorry, sir, your 12 months are up.
Well,
Or
that's a
do I go back
classic.
to purpose of satisfying the customer?
Well, that's the classic example of the letter of the law versus the spirit of it.
Right.
That's a great
Yeah.
example, because it's just like, obviously, technically, you're outside of the warranty, but we all know that the person didn't drive it.
One of the
Yeah.
other kind of aspects of that I think about a lot, because in our quality control documents, we talk about making sure a second set of eyes does quality control besides the person that did the work.
Right.
And to Karla's point, if you're a team, you QC each other's work to protect each other. If you've got an ugly atmosphere in your shop, a toxic atmosphere, you QC each other's work trying to do the other guy over.
Right.
And
Trying to
so-
find fault.
Right, trying to find fault. Nah, look at him, he did wrong. So a lot of that comes from the leader, that spirit of the law, because both things say somebody has to QC the other guy's work. If the foreman's out, another tech needs to do it. So what we hope for, and what Karla was talking about, is, hey, that's not how we do things here. Let me show you, let's all get on the same page, because we're all working together for the common goal. And to me, there's a magic trick. It's not really magic though. It's leadership. If the spirit from the leader is, we're going to work together, protect each other, help each other, then that is infectious and goes through the whole crew, and that becomes the spirit of teamwork.
Sure.
Oh,
One of the things I noticed about what you were just saying, and I was just thinking about it when you were saying it, is any group that people decide to put together, whether it's an automobile repair shop, a business, or a baseball team that they play on Sunday, whoever that individual is that had the vision to put the group together, had the vision to put these guys all in the same room. Then a lot of shop owners don't realize how much of their own personality gets imprinted onto the entirety of the group. They don't realize it is almost like magic how much of them winds up being expressed within the group. And you could have 10 different 10 people in that group that when they're not there, they're completely different types of people. But when they get together, they start to have the character of whoever started the group or whoever leads or runs the group. And that's an element of leadership that I think is so overlooked by inexperienced leaders. They don't realize how much of their own character and their own philosophy just imprints itself onto the team. And so they have to be very cautious. Like, if, we all know we have shortcomings and we all know that we have gifts, and you have to try to mitigate those like if you tend to get like really angry too much, you got to really discipline yourself not to do that within the environment, or you'll create an angry environment and the whole team will start to mimic it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
You're
that's
right. I've read so many inspection reports, and I can't tell what kind of owner. I could tell who the owner is. I mean, I might not be able to say the name, but I could tell the owner from that inspection
from the report.
because they create, yeah, this is exactly what you're saying. They create, either a fear, or everybody loves the shop, or everybody wants to grow with it, or they're all trying to get away from it. I mean, it's just it just communicates no matter what. I had an experience of being in a business that another company merged with it, and the culture was very different. The culture of the first company was sort of like a bit aggressive, and everybody was sort of like, out on their own, and, oh, you want something, you do it, why are you bothering me with it and stuff like that. And the company that came in was like totally, completely service oriented. Like, what do you need? How can I help you? um, it's not a problem. Let me show you. I mean, it was just like, it was such a contrast, that it became really obvious how, the person running the company that came in had a whole different set of values, and a whole different, the attitude was like, we're here to help each other and help everybody else and help the customer. And there is no stopping on that. We'll go all the way out to help you help each other and help the customer. And it was so much more easy and pleasurable to work with them, because you never felt like you were bothering somebody, or like, oh, I need to ask for help. Okay, let me put my armor before, let
Yeah,
me get my
exactly.
knife and my armor, and you know what I
Right.
mean?
My battle gear.
My bottle here before I go ask for, if there's a pencil that I can have, what I mean? Anyway.
Yeah,
But it was a
developing.
different perspective,
Oh yeah, and that starts with the top, and that starts with leadership.
with the owner.
What is their goal? What is their purpose? What kind of culture are they trying to cultivate?
Yeah,
And one that cultivates a culture of help goes so much further because they realize what their purpose is in that business.
yeah.
Yep.
You see it in restaurants too, right? Like
Oh yeah,
you see it in different, even franchises that are run by different managers, and you go one place and it's like, wow, look at the people and they're friendly and everything, and you go, without naming any names, you go to another one and it's like, it's like,
a different business.
it's
Yeah.
completely like you don't even want to be there, and it's like, it's always the manager, it's always the person at the top that is,
Yeah.
you know,
And
yeah,
I found that to be true also with hotels. When I was on the road
yeah,
all those years, I could go to 15 different Hiltons and have a great experience in 10 and a lousy experience in 5 of them. I
Yep.
was like, what was the difference? Well, it was
just the
whoever was,
management.
yeah, whoever was leading that group was the difference. My worst one was I got to the hotel. It was a Hilton. I got to the hotel and the manager checked us in because the entire staff had quit an hour ago.
Oh man.
Not that that happens in our shops.
Yes, that doesn't happen.
Let's hope
Ever.
not.
Oh, by the way, I want to say hello to an old friend of ours who's watching, Adam Jadovitz. Hello, Adam.
Hey,
Adam's
Adam.
here. That's
Are you
awesome.
in Lake Elsinore or are you down in Mexico? Where are you? And oh, Mark Granum is watching. Hello, Mark. Glad you guys could join
Mark.
us. Yeah,
Very
there's
good.
so much to be said about, and you brought up something about shop inspections. And when I was first creating that service, I added the question of the interview before you go to find out what is the owner's philosophy about business? What are they trying to do?
Yeah.
So that so that when you got there, you could have a sense of what it is he's all about and what he's trying to accomplish. And does his team understand this?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Has he ever communicated it?
Yeah, we used to do that mission statement, and um, sometimes it's like mission statement, and then let alone the employees, right? Like, do your employees know what your mission statement is? Like, let me dig it out. I don't know where did we put it last, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and it's like that's a failure to communicate because the owner might have good intentions, but hey, you didn't communicate it to the manager and he's going with his ideas and it's not your business anymore. It's
Yeah,
not your intention, it's not your mission statement.
right.
Right.
And you're right. And that's so important. Was that written down? Is it somewhere where everybody can see it and be reminded daily? Oh yeah, that's what we're trying to do here. Right?
Right.
What we
Right.
have here is a failure to communicate.
What we have here
Yes,
is a failure to
I knew that
communicate.
was coming.
In, in, in Ercon's webinar on Wednesday, at the top of it, he made a big point about that. And it really struck me because I've seen this a lot where the owner can't keep employees and it's not necessarily the money and it's feeling like they are working towards something that's going to become something
Right.
that vision of
Something bigger than themselves.
right, we're not there
Yep.
today, but this is where we want to go.
Right. And
People
that
need to feel that, believe
Yeah.
in that.
And that
Yeah.
vision, if you can get the team to buy into that vision, and it's always thinking of the future, because what's one of the most important things that a leader does? He creates a future for the people that are following him.
Right.
That you create that future for them, and they know they're imagining a year from now or 10 years from now that they're still going to be there with you, and they're going to be making the money they need to have all the other things in their life, like put their kids into college and buy the nice house and all their personal dreams, because they have their own personal dreams too. And if you can keep the future there for them, then they will be very loyal.
Yeah, and I think that especially during difficult times, slow times, stuff like that, is even more important
Hmm.
because they have to know that you're going to save their bacon, you know? Like you're doing marketing, you're doing all these things to bring work and you're not going to leave them stranded, because if
Right.
somebody feels like, hey, there's not enough work and nobody's doing anything,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
very
jump
insecure
ship.
feeling.
I'm gonna
Yep.
jump ship, right?
Yeah, they
But
start
if
looking
you're
around.
communicating, yeah, if
Right.
you as a leader communicating goes, hey, you guys, I understand it's slow, but we're making these calls and we're sending this marketing and we're doing this and we're, you know what I mean?
Don't
And
worry, I'm going to carry us through.
yeah, and then if they have a nice stash of money there so that if things get a little tight, they still can pay them, that group is going to follow that person because
Yep.
they feel confident that they will survive and not be thrown to the curb at any
then-
moment.
And then with all of that, you add one more little element to it, and that is that the people that are following that individual truly believe that that individual genuinely cares about them
Right.
and cares about what they care about and will listen to what they have to say and will do everything in their power to help align what their goals and purposes are. If that happens, you've got an individual that would probably run through a wall for you at that point. They would do anything for you.
Well, that
And that's
brings
where,
back to
yeah,
a point that Karla was bringing up, and I know some of her clients do this. I don't know that all of our clients do, but it's very smart. And that is, you go over each of your team members' goals for the new year.
mhm,
What do they want to get out of the new year? Where do they want to be? What kind of training do they want? Personally, what are they trying to achieve? And caring enough to talk to each one of your people to get that sense of who they are, what are they trying to achieve, and then aligning what they're trying to achieve with what you're trying to achieve, that you're pushing together to get that rock up the hill.
yep,
Yeah, that's
And
so vitally
we go
important.
back, yeah, totally. And we go back to what John was saying, communication, communication, because you can be like working hard and trying to fix everything and whatever, but if you're not communicating, how are they supposed to know
That's
that you're
right.
working
right.
on it? You know, they
They're
can't
supposed
read
to
your
just
mind.
know, Karla. They're supposed to just know. It's so
But
obvious.
that is why
Yeah.
those weekly meetings are so important.
Yeah.
That's a key element of being a leader is having a weekly meeting just to say, I'm here, I'm at the head, I'm at the helm, I'm
And to
driving.
reiterate that goal
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
This
and
is where we're going. This
how
is what
further
we're
we got
doing.
to it this week. How
Right.
much closer we got to it this week. Dennis Goodall is he's great about that, creating those yearly goals with his team.
Yeah.
Holy
And
cow.
he's got great prizes for those goals too.
Yeah.
Yes,
We hit these goals and we're going on a cruise, or we hit these
Right.
goals, we're going to Hawaii.
that's right. Big ones.
Yeah.
Pretty
Tonya,
good. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I think it's time for a station break.
I think it is. I was going to say that's a pretty good gig when you get bored from going to Hawaii.
Hawaii again?
Hawaii again? Can we do a cruise? Can we do a cruise along, the Mexican coast? Anyway, let me tell you guys a little bit about what's going to happen next week. Friday, April 4th for Drive Facebook Live. It's going to be a subject show. Bob, it's just me and you.
Oh, really?
Seize the moment. Yeah. The time to recruit is now. So we're going to be talking about recruitment, which I know a lot of our listeners have a lot of concerns about. So we'll spend a half hour talking about recruitment, just me and you. No guests next week.
Well,
And
all right.
There you
There we
go.
go.
also, I want to remind everybody that we do have an expo coming up in Las Vegas, September 18th, 19th, and 20th. That's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. You never want to miss an expo with Drive. We really know. I'll just put it this way. We know how to party. So come Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And also, you will learn a lot too, because we get a lot of really productive work done while we're there as well.
And the
So,
networking is always
and the
so
network is
vitally important.
That's right. It's you're going to meet people that you may know or you may have seen in a Zoom meeting in a workshop. You're going to get to sit down with them, have dinner, get to know them. You're going to meet people that I'll tell you right now, we have clients that met each other at an expo and are lifelong friends. And one might be in Hawaii and one might be in Connecticut, and it just doesn't matter. They're still lifelong friends.
Yeah,
And
they visit each other.
it all happened at the expo. That's where
And
it
you
all
can
began.
hear about how, you know, the different styles of leadership and how you guys have achieved their goals at
Yep.
the awards, master awards.
That's right. Yeah,
That
you
is
find
correct.
out a lot of best practices.
Yeah.
'Cause it's so easy to feel like I'm all alone with this problem out here in the field.
I'm
And then
the
you get
only
in,
one.
yeah, I'm the only one. And then you get into a room with 100 other shop owners and go, oh yeah, I've had that problem.
Right. And that's one of the things. You think you've got some problem that's completely unique, that is insolvable. And then you go, oh, there are 10
There's
guys
a
in this room that all had this problem and they solved it.
Go sit down with them.
Yes,
that's right.
go have a nice dinner.
That's
That's
right.
right.
Well, we're bumping up against the top of the hour here. Any last words, Tony?
I was going to ask if John had anything like that he wanted to say before we ended it off.
Well, I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but I understand, a leader is a leader regardless of job title or position in the organization.
yeah.
And
That's
all I
very
want
good
to
point.
say is that when I came to work here, I don't remember Tony and Bob had beards, and now they do. And I don't know if
Yes.
it's just my natural leadership imprinting on the baseball team.
John.
Tony said,
John, you don't understand what an influence you are on me. John.
well,
You are, John.
You are a
look,
huge influence.
I just want to be a blessing. I just want
You are. And then Karla, any last words?
I think that working on the communication is always good. As a
Yeah.
leader, we forget that we need to communicate what's happening, we're thinking, what needs to happen, and more communication, more communication.
Couldn't agree more.
I agree
Well,
too.
I want to thank everybody for joining us. And from all of us at Drive Facebook Live, we hope you have a great afternoon and a great weekend. And we'll see you all next time.
adios.
Bye-bye.
Yes,
Bye.
bye.